Welcome back. An entire month dedicated to the value of women in society has done little to stem the tide of gender-based violence. Scores of women have been raped, dozens killed and abused this month. At the same time, the recent crime stats paint an even grimmer picture. Between April and June this year, 10,000 rapes were reported countrywide. Lisa Vetten from the University of Johannesburg joins us now live for more. Lisa, thanks for your time. Just looking back at this month, many people will argue that not enough has been done, especially on the side from government. But there are organizations in this country that are doing a lot of work to help deal with gender-based violence.
Yes, there's actually an enormous amount of work that goes on every day in counselling offices, at hospitals, at clinics, at victim-friendly rooms, and so much of that work goes unrecognised and unfunded. And for that reason, I don't think it's really allowed to have the kind of impact that it could have if it was given the proper attention and the proper focus and funding. I mean, far too often we have a lot of politicians who stand up, say the right things, talk about a second pandemic, talk about how much they care, but that doesn't translate into anything meaningful, like ensuring that there's something as simple as money for the debriefing of doctors who work in the Tituzela care centres and are seeing rape survivors on a regular basis and being quite traumatised by it.
Yeah, it's always, us talking about the same issues every month, the same time every year around August. What has government done? And I'm trying to look for some positives here in terms of how we handle gender-based violence in this country.
Okay, if we look at some positives, I think there is some hope in things like the Gender-Based Violence Response Fund, which was at government's prompting and one of the things that came out of the summit. So I think there's been a good sum of money raised there. The challenge will be to see how that fund goes about distributing that money and making sure they do so in a wise way where we'll have maximum impact. So that's positive. I think the attempt by the Department of Justice to ensure that domestic violence is more than just a policing and criminal justice problem, but becomes a problem for social services and for healthcare services is very important. That's what they're proposing through the directives in relation to the new Domestic Violence Act. So I think those are two areas where we are seeing some positives and some definite moves forward. And there are some attempts, again, to try and sort out the mess at the DNA laboratories. I'm not holding my breath. This has been a 20-year problem, but nonetheless, there is an effort underway, so let's acknowledge it.
Yeah. All right. We're done acknowledging it. But now let's talk about what really has to be done to actually see dramatic change when it comes to dealing with gender-based violence in this country.
Firstly, I think it has to stop being politicized. It really has to stop being an exercise in rhetoric where politicians fall over themselves to say how much they care, but do absolutely nothing on a day-to-day basis in terms of ensuring that their departments have the training and the resourcing and just the simple knowledge to be able to do their work. That's lacking. If I look at the plans, I'm not seeing that being translated into reality. For instance, in the Eastern Cape, they cut their budgets there by 56 million rand in order to pay government officials occupation and specific dispensation. That's had a significant effect on the funding that funding was taken from services, which included victim empowerment programs, which apparently are a government priority. And we see this in other parts of the country as well, that Department of Social Development budgets, which come through victim empowerment, simply don't get the money that they ought to. We're seeing it in the impact, I think, and the lack of recognition around the impact of COVID-19 on services. So it's that much harder to get a protection order because there are fewer staff, there is social distancing, you have to come earlier. If you're not there by 10 o'clock or 11 o'clock at some courts, you're not going to be helped because they're only going to help those people who are in the queue. We're still seeing the police simply not doing their job. And some of it has to do with the fact that they see this corruption, they see things falling apart at the top, they become demotivated, they see little reason in which to put effort into their cases and close them for very quick reasons. And you can see this I'm going to give an example of an actual case here, of a 6-year-old child who had gonorrhea. The investigating officer closed it on the basis that they were told that a child can get gonorrhea from the toilet seat. Clearly, there's a very big problem in training if that's what's being told and the guidance that's being given. So it's the day-to-day stuff, the everyday stuff that you have to do, not the grand stuff of speeches, but the everyday work that we need to be paying attention, and that's really suffering.
All right, we don't have a very great line here, Lisa, but we do hear what you're saying. Thank you so much for your time. Lisa Vetten from the University of Johannesburg.